Hi folks, Tim here, and welcome back to Elmendorf Acres. Well, we've got a little bit of a technical pruning job we're doing today, and I thought you folks may enjoy watching a video about it. So what we have is we've got a very, very large magnolia tree here. You can see how big this thing is. We've actually been in here, I think it was last year or the year before, and we pruned some of it out because it was really starting to sag under the snow load. Well, of course, right after we get done doing that and you start taking care of things, this poor guy had a maple top snap off, and it's laying right in the magnolia bush itself. So you can see where that one is still suspended, so we need to take care of that. And there's also, which is just a very simple thing, this branch here, and it goes up right to about there. But that is from this little maple tree right here. So we need to take down that stub, and we're going to be taking the top of this maple tree out that's suspended, along with cutting and trimming any of the broken branches on the magnolia. And then we're going to take this stub down here, the other side of this maple tree, cut it all into firewood for him. But I thought you'd enjoy it, and we'll do our best to record it and try to get some of it on a time lapse. Okay, so the way this is, we can't access it with a bucket truck, and it's already done the damage it's going to do to this magnolia tree. So what we did is we just put a rope up in it. We're going to yank it, pull it off that magnolia tree, and also pop the little sliver up here that's still on the stump. So Owen here is going to just slowly pull. You're good. And it's just going to pull it off. I want to get as much off this magnolia as we can, as gently as we can. So that's kind of the idea. Usually I would cut some of the other branches off, but they're almost acting as a cushion right now. Just like that. Now it's down. So now it's not dangerous up top anymore, because that pulled that hinge right off. And now we can reach everything with the pole saw. And with him releasing pressure on the rope, it slides that top right down. And there is very, very little damage to this magnolia tree, other than what was broken when it actually snapped off during the ice storm, which is exactly what we wanted to do. We wanted to go real easy. So it all went exactly to plan. Like I said, now we can very easily access this part with the pole saw, and it keeps everyone out of danger that way. So it all went well. Back to time lapse. Okay, so all in all, our tree job went really well. We're a little bit ahead of schedule, but there was some other odd jobs that he had here, so we're filling out the rest of our time with that. Cut a couple extra dead ash trees that I found. Figured while we were here he would like to get them out of the way, so we did that for him. And I'm in the middle of pruning his 2 pear trees, but I figured maybe we should shoot a little bit of that footage-wise, just so you can kind of see what we do when we're pruning. I'm not pruning these for fruit production. I'm pruning them to try to bring their canopy back in a little bit. It's been a long time since they've been pruned. I actually took some shoots off at the top of the pear tree that were growing off a horizontal branch, and they were 12 feet tall. So that is a lot of material to take off a pear tree, but we needed to do it, and I'm going to do a little more light pruning on it, so I'll show you what we're doing there. So this is from the vantage point earlier. If you remember, right laying in here was a small top that was from the ground laying in, and then one that was up here suspended leaning on the tree. We also took down the small stub that was here and the big stub that was here, and right behind it was a dead maple. We took that out as well. It was leaning towards the magnolia tree a little bit. We figured while we were here we should get rid of that for him. But you can see everything's cleaned up nice and neat. Got rid of the wood chips, they're all in the woods, and we stacked the brush nice and neat back in the woods for him. We didn't have to chip anything on this job, which was nice. We didn't have to bring in a chipper. Kept the price down a little bit. The only other thing we did was there was a few branches that were really bent over because it's been laying like this for a while. So we thinned those branches out a little bit. You can actually see this one lower one here, how it's got just a little bit of a curve to it. I took half of that branch off, the other half we left because it'll be just aesthetically pleasing. But all in all, the magnolia tree weathered it very, very well. And our idea of hooking a rope and then pulling the top this way allowed that top to pull out of the tree, and then we could lower it back down nice and easy with the rope. So we did that, and it worked well for us. We cut those stumps right around a foot, but they're cut nice and flat. Couldn't cut it lower because there is another 3rd tree that was in that cluster there, and that one's still alive, so we wanted to be nice to that and not cut it right down to the ground. So having that 3rd tree like that is a little bit of what I've talked about in the past as we've been walking through the woods and making some videos, is when you have the opportunity to trim out those suckers, you should do it. The middle tree of that cluster died, and the one on the left side, which is the one that we took out today, was sick. The whole inside was hollow and it snapped off. So when you can get rid of those suckers early on, it's better for the tree health. Yes, I know they look cool, but unless they're actually designed to be that way, like your multi-stem birch, then you really got to thin them out. So we're back here with this pear tree. Now, again, I am not going for fruit production. I'm just trying to rein it in a little bit. You can still see that some of these branches are 15 feet off the ground. Now, I was using the pole saw, and I was cutting those shoots at about 10 feet off the ground, and we still took 12 feet off the top with those shoots. So that was a pretty hefty prune. As I've said in previous videos, when you have a real overgrown apple tree or a really heavily overgrown pear tree, you use the rule of thirds. Top third the first year, bottom third the second year, and thin out the tree on the 3rd year. So when they're really, really overgrown, it takes a couple years to really properly bring them back into the shape that they are supposed to be. Now, we can do a little bit more trimming here, because even though we took a lot off the top, as far as the actual mass of the tree goes, we did not take anywhere close to a 1/3. We took, I think, 6 or 7 of those big shoots off the top. Now, when I'm talking about these shoots, I'll bring you a little closer here so we can see what we're talking about. I actually see that I have one still in the tree that I didn't pull out yet. This is one of the smaller ones, but these grow straight off the top of a horizontal branch. And I'm going to set this just here so we can see what I'm talking about. That grows straight, and that is about 9 feet tall. And that was one of the smaller ones. But that grows straight off of these horizontal branches. So we trimmed those off. That one actually came from right there. And we do it, we cut just a little bit of an angle, that way the water sheds off. And there are two schools of thought. One says that you need to spray the tree with a water repellent. Usually it's a petroleum type based sealant. And the other school of thought is, for thousands and thousands of years, trees have been getting damaged and healing themselves and lasting for another 100 years, well before we were sealing them with anything. So that's kind of the school of thought that I use. It's worked very well in the past for us, where we don't actually seal anything on these trees. So even if we take a large leader off an oak or a maple, the same thing applies, where we can allow it to heal naturally. So I want to show you what I'm talking about with these shoots here, since I've got a few left. And we can see this transition. We've got a horizontal, or mostly horizontal limb, and we've got this shoot. Now this shoot grows up, and you see what it does? It actually hits the next horizontal limb. So that's not healthy, and I'm sure anybody can see that if you go to prune your fruit trees. A little bit of common sense. I am not an expert by any means compared to the guys that commercially prune fruit trees, but just a little bit of common sense will say, this branch right here, this has to come out. And a little nipper, I use just a Corona simple bypass lopper, handheld, nice and clean cut it out, and pull that branch out, right? So we're gonna do that on a few. We've got a small one here, same thing. Nice clean cuts. And like I said, you don't wanna do a lot in the first year, especially when things are overgrown. So I want to capture any of those type of shoots. Anything like this that's broken off, you want to trim out. Any of those little broken or growing weird type of pieces, just trim them right out. So again, I'm not pruning this tree necessarily for fruit production. I'm trying to bring it back into a healthy tree category. And while it may look healthy, because it certainly looks healthy to the naked eye, it needs a little bit of help. And you can see where some more of these are growing off here, here, and here. And it's very easy and obvious to pick these out. The bark is actually a little bit different color, usually, not always, but usually, and they tend to grow straight up, straight off the top of these fruit trees. So those are what you're looking for. You want to get rid of them. So this was pruned many years ago right here. You can see that that is healed very nicely. But what should have been done is whoever was pruning and maintaining this tree should have watched how the tree was growing, because this intersection right here where the branches are rubbing has the potential to introduce disease to your tree. So you really want to avoid that. And this one may even be grown together at this point. Now it's not quite grown together. So we'll see from here. We'll look at it from this side. It still does move apart, but you see where for years that has been rubbing together. And the interesting part is this lower branch right here is actually dead. So we can cut this off here and it'll help this tree be healthier. So we're gonna go ahead and do that and cut a few more shoots off the tree. But that's what we've been hired to do with this one, is to come in and prune it for health. It's more of an ornamental tree where if he gets some pears, he's happy. But the idea is more of an ornamental tree in the yard and something that is pollinator friendly and bird friendly. Well, I'm gonna walk over here where we have a nice view of High Point Mountain, because I think that would be a nice backdrop for the rest of this video. Now there's a nice view. Now that's actually South Mountain there. And then as we continue walking, we'll catch a little bit of High Point. You just see it through the trees. So we've got a little bit of high point there through the trees. So it's a nice seasonal view here, but he's got a beautiful view of the fields through there and South Mountain. And he's got a nice little Japanese maple in the middle. He's framed by this magnolia tree here and the one here that we took the top out of. So I'm sure you can see now why it was so important to him to get those tops out before the real growing season started. So we were able to make that happen. But back to the pollinator friendly and bird friendly, it's something that's really, really important. And it's something that it might seem hard to do, but it's really not. Like I said, you can put in some fruit trees, and there's so many other options that are bird and pollinator friendly. Now, when you're planting blueberries and peaches and pears, things like that, of course you want some for yourself. But if you're thinking about a flowering bush or a flowering tree, whatever the case may be, think about something that might be fruit or nut oriented, and that's gonna help those birds as they're making nests, and it's going to help those pollinators, especially early in the year. So we love to do native stuff. We love to do pollinator friendly stuff here at Elmendorf Acres. And Elmendorf Landscaping, we've really dedicated ourselves to try to be as natural and native along with pollinator friendly as possible. So those are just a couple thoughts for the day. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, please subscribe, and please share.